What if I told you that hidden in your pocket change could be a rare Jefferson nickel worth thousands of dollars? What if I told you that these small coins minted decades ago hold secret stories and values that only true collectors know today? On Us Numis Journey, we dive deep into the world of 5 rare Jefferson nickels. Joining me again on this deep numismatic journey, where today we will explore the fascinating history and complete story of the 1975 Jefferson nickel, a coin that might seem ordinary at first glance, but carries a rich legacy of American history, minting evolution, economic shifts, and collector intrigue stretching back over 4 decades. And to truly appreciate the story behind the 1975 Jefferson nickel, we must go back to its origins in the year 1938, when the Jefferson nickel was first introduced as a replacement for the Buffalo nickel, a coin that had served the country for 25 years, but had worn out its welcome with the U.S. Mint due to issues with striking and the complexity of its design. And thus in 1938, a design competition was held with the goal of finding a new representation for the American 5-cent piece, and ultimately the winner was Felix Schlag, whose rendering of Thomas Jefferson was chosen to grace the obverse of the coin, and a design featuring Monticello, his historic Virginia home, on the reverse. And this marked the beginning of what would become one of the longest-running coin series in U.S. history. And as the decades passed, the Jefferson nickel saw subtle modifications, minting variations, and changes in composition, but its general appearance remained consistent through wars, recessions, and cultural shifts. And by the time we arrive at the year 1975, the United States was in a period of transition, recovering from the Vietnam War, grappling with inflation, and facing changes in the cost and sourcing of coinage materials. And during this time, the Jefferson nickel continued to be struck in large numbers, serving as a workhorse of American commerce. But even within the mass production of these coins, there exist details and differences that make some 1975 nickels particularly interesting to collectors and historians alike. And now focusing specifically on the 1975 issue, we note that these nickels were produced at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, though Philadelphia issues bear no mint mark, while Denver coins are marked with a small D on the obverse next to Monticello, and in terms of mintage, numbers. Philadelphia produced over 181 million nickels, while Denver struck over 401 million, making the 1975 D Jefferson nickel one of the higher mintage coins in the series. And yet even with such high numbers, the condition, rarity, and strike quality vary dramatically, leading to differences in value and collectability. And now we must discuss the design in more detail, starting with the obverse, which still features the profile of Thomas Jefferson. Facing left, a portrait based on a bust by sculptor Jean-Antoine Houdon with the inscriptions, "In God We Trust," to the left, "Liberty" to the right, and the date 1975 directly behind Jefferson's ponytail. And while this design remained unchanged for decades, it is the fine details, such as strike sharpness, die wear, and minting quality, that differentiate a common coin from a valuable collectible. And turning the coin over to the reverse, we see the iconic image of Monticello Jefferson's stately neoclassical mansion, which remains a symbol of American history and Enlightenment architecture, with the inscriptions "E Pluribus Unum" centered above Monticello beneath it, and 5 cents and United States of America filling out the lower arcs of the reverse. And now to explore varieties and errors, which are crucial to collectors and enthusiasts, we examine known issues from 1975, such as die cracks, plancher errors, off-center strikes, double dies, and particularly full-step specimens, where the steps leading up to Monticello are fully visible and well-defined, indicating a sharp strike and superior die condition. And these full steps coins can command significant premiums, especially in higher mint state grades, certified by third-party grading companies like PCGS and NGC. And now we dive into grading, which plays a pivotal role in numismatic value. with grades ranging from circulated conditions like good and fine to higher levels such as mint state 60 through 70, and coins with deep luster minimal contact marks and sharp detail are the most prized and often stored in protective holders to preserve their condition, and over time certain 1975 nickels have been discovered in exceptional states, including high mint state grades with full steps designation and even cameo or proof-like finishes in rare cases. And although no official proof nickels were struck in 1975 for circulation, collectors have sometimes found unusually reflective surfaces which may have been the result of early strikes from new dies, and to fully understand the collectability of the 1975 Jefferson nickel, we must consider its position in the broader timeline of U.S. coinage in the 1970s, a decade marked by economic upheaval, shifts in metal values, and changes in public perception of coin collecting itself. And as silver had already been removed from circulating coinage by this time, the nickel, along with the penny, remained among the only coins to contain their original non-precious metal compositions, though even these would be reviewed periodically for cost-effectiveness. And now turning to the market, we must examine how the 1975 nickel is bought, sold, and appraised with raw examples. Often worth face value in circulated grades, but rising sharply in value with higher condition and desirable traits, and auction records show that superb examples with full steps have sold for hundreds, even thousands of dollars, particularly when graded MS-67 or higher by reputable services. And part of what makes the 1975 Jefferson nickel a compelling subject for a 2-hour discussion is its intersection with American history, monetary policy design evolution, and the nuances of coin production, which together form a deep and fascinating narrative that reflects not only the journey of a single coin, but also the story of a nation in flux and the passionate community that seeks to preserve its artifacts. And so whether you are a seasoned collector or a curious beginner, the 1975 Jefferson nickel offers endless opportunities for discovery, from examining coins under magnification for subtle doubling or step definition, to researching die pairings and minting patterns, to understanding the economics that shaped its creation and circulation. And in future videos, we will explore the rarest examples of this coin, provide step-by-step guides for grading and valuation, highlight viewer submissions, and continue our journey through the numismatic treasures of American history. And with that, I welcome you back to my channel, where knowledge meets passion and history lives through the coins we carry and collect. The 1975 Jefferson nickel is a frequent target among roll hunters because of its potential for full steps and hidden gems, and many stories exist of lucky hobbyists discovering MS-condition nickels right out of rolls and placing them into graded collections. And this activity not only adds excitement and accessibility to the hobby, but also perpetuates the preservation of numismatic history through community participation and shared knowledge. And now we explore the educational aspect of the 1975 nickel in classrooms, museums, and youth clubs, such as the American Numismatic Association, which often uses coins like these to teach history, economics, metallurgy, and design appreciation. And school programs and coin clubs frequently include Jefferson nickels in starter kits because of their low-cost availability and historical depth. And this makes the 1975 Jefferson nickels in starter kits because of their low-cost availability and historical depth. And this makes the 1975 Jefferson nickel not only a collector's item, but a pedagogical tool and a bridge between generations. And as we near the conclusion of this extended analysis, it's important to reflect on the continuing legacy of the Jefferson nickel series, which remains in production today with a redesigned image of Jefferson introduced in 2006. And although the 1975 issue falls squarely in the original design era, it remains a key representative of 20th century American coinage and a favorite among specialists who study die varieties, production anomalies, and long-term circulation effects, and whether found in change a coin album or an auction catalog. The 1975 Jefferson nickel stands as a symbol of American resilience design. tradition, and the everyday art of minting that quietly connects our pockets to our past. And so I welcome you once again to this channel as we celebrate the small yet mighty coin that tells a mighty American story, where history meets currency and collectors find their passion reignited. Today, we're diving into the incredible and often overlooked journey of the Jefferson nickel with a special focus on the 1990 issues, which are part of one of the most iconic coin series in American history, originating in 1938. The Jefferson nickel replaced the Buffalo nickel and was created to honor the third president of the United States, Thomas Jefferson, with a portrait designed by artist Felix Schlag, who won a national design competition for the obverse. The initial image of Jefferson remained largely unchanged for decades, and his Monticello home featured prominently on the reverse, which itself is a symbol of neoclassical architecture and American heritage. The Jefferson nickel has always been more than a simple coin. It is a representation of wartime economics, of shifts in minting technologies, of American symbolism, and of the collector's pursuit of detail, variation, and meaning. By 1990, the Jefferson nickel had been circulating for over 50 years, and the coins minted that year carry with them both historical and collectible weight that deserves exploration in full. The 1990 Jefferson nickel was produced at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with no nickels struck at San Francisco for general circulation, but only for proof sets. The 1990P and 1990D nickels were part of a broader economic and political landscape marked by global changes and domestic transitions, and these coins were being used in everyday transactions at a time when the Cold War was ending. The digital age was dawning, and numismatic interest was rising again in the United States. Now, to understand the 1990 issue, we need to look closely at the mintage numbers, the quality of the strike, the metal composition, and the evolving technology of coin production. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 661 million nickels, while the Denver Mint produced slightly more at over 768 million, making this a common year in terms of sheer numbers. But within these hundreds of millions of coins lie variations, errors, and conditions that dramatically affect collectability value and historical interpretation. Collectors today examine strike quality, especially looking at full steps on the Monticello reverse, which indicate a high-quality strike and are more rare in circulation coins from this year. Examples with 5 or 6 full steps on Monticello's base are significantly more desirable and command premiums, especially in higher grades. This opens the door to discussing minting technology in the late 1980s and early 1990s, where the United States Mint was transitioning into improved planche preparation, better die maintenance, and more rigorous quality control. The 1990 Jefferson nickel serves as an example of this transitional phase, and as such, coins from this year can be used to study how the Mint refined its methods without altering the coin's basic design. It is also critical to examine the metal composition, which has remained largely consistent in modern nickels at 75% copper and 25% nickel, but subtle variances in alloy mixes can result in differences in toning luster, and weight collectors sometimes seek out off-metal errors as well. And while rare, such mistakes are possible even in modern coinage and can significantly impact the desirability of a specimen, there's also the fascinating story of how these nickels were distributed and used throughout the United States in 1990. They entered circulation in vending machines, coin-operated telephones, parking meters, and banks, which brings us into the cultural and economic context of the time. 1990 was a year of considerable global and national change, with events like the reunification of Germany, the build-up to the Gulf War, the evolution of the tech industry, and shifting economic policies in the United States. These coins were changing hands while the world was transforming, and they became silent witnesses to that change. In terms of collecting, the 1990 Jefferson nickel was often overlooked due to its high mintage, but in recent decades, attention to detail, die varieties, and grading has sparked renewed interest among numismatists. PCGS and NGC now recognize top-graded 1990. Jefferson nickel was often overlooked due to its high mintage, but in recent decades, attention to detailed die varieties and grading has sparked renewed interest among numismatists. PCGS and NGC now recognize top-graded 1990 nickels with full steps as noteworthy, especially in MS66 and MS67 grades, which are scarce and reflect superior strike and preservation. The value of such coins can range widely from face value for common worn examples to over $100 for high-grade full-step coins, which introduces the idea of market fluctuation driven by collector demand, rarity, and grading services. The numismatic market itself has changed dramatically since 1990, with online auction platforms, professional grading, and global collecting communities reshaping how coins like the 1990 Jefferson nickel are bought, sold, and studied in this light. The 1990 issue is not just a common coin, but a lens through which we can observe broader numismatic trends. The Jefferson nickel series also underwent significant changes shortly after 1990, including eventual design modifications and modernization in 2004 and 2005 during the Westward Journey series, which updated the reverse and brought new attention to the series before returning in 2006 to a forward-facing Jefferson on the obverse. The 1990 issue sits right before this wave of modern transformation and stands as one of the last years of the classic design uninterrupted since 1938, which adds a sense of closure to the original vision of Felix Schlag. In conclusion, the 1990 Jefferson nickel encapsulates decades of American coin design policy and history, and its widespread presence in circulation hides the depth of detail that serious collectors and historians can uncover from minting processes to design legacy, from grading nuances to the cultural backdrop of 1990. This coin deserves a full examination and appreciation. So if you are a collector, a historian, or simply someone curious about how much meaning and story can be packed into a small 5-cent piece, you're in the right place. As we begin this deep and unbroken journey into the life of the 1990 Jefferson nickel, stay tuned. As we explore mint varieties, era coins, condition, rarity, economic context, cultural meaning, and the evolving identity of American coinage, all through the lens of a coin that might still be sitting quietly in your pocket today. From the perspective of long-term investment, these coins also hold potential, particularly in ultra-high grades or unique error types. The market for Jefferson nickels has remained relatively stable, with occasional spikes in value for exceptional specimens, such as full-step coins from notoriously weak years, or double-die errors that surface from old hoards. The long-term appreciation of coins like the 1990 Jefferson nickel depends on education, awareness, and the evolving tastes of the numismatic community, with some collectors focusing on complete date and mint mark sets, while others pursue registry-level quality. One could build a complete run of business strikes from 1938 to present, or target specific subsets like wartime nickels or post-1980 full-step coins. And in every one of those cases, the 1990 nickel has a place as part of a legacy series that now spans almost a century. We also must consider the international collector base, which often focuses on American coins because of their iconic designs and economic symbolism. Jefferson as a figure represents not just America, but the Enlightenment ideas of liberty, reason, and republicanism, and his coinage stands in contrast to monarchic and authoritarian imagery used on global currencies. The nickel's bilingual presence in Canadian border towns, its use on U.S. military bases overseas, and its availability through global auctions means it has quietly become a cultural export even as it remains a domestic coin. And so, as we conclude this expanded journey into the 1990 Jefferson nickel, we are reminded that every coin tells multiple stories, one of design, one of politics, one of economics, one of personal nostalgia, and one of national identity. Whether you are holding a worn 1990 nickel pulled from a coin jar or a pristine full-step gem in a protective slab. That coin is a time capsule of a moment and a memory of all the hands it has passed through and all the history it represents, where we dive deep into the fascinating and often overlooked world of coin collecting. Today, we're embarking on an in-depth journey through the legacy, history, and significance of the 2021 Jefferson nickel, a modern piece rooted in decades of tradition and change. The Jefferson nickel, first minted in 1938, replaced the Buffalo nickel and quickly became a mainstay in American currency, with a design dedicated to the third president of the United States, Thomas Jefferson. It was the work of artist Felix Schlag, whose vision of Monticello Jefferson's iconic home on the reverse and a distinguished left-facing portrait on the obverse marked a new chapter in U.S. coinage over the decades. The nickel has seen only a few major design revisions, most notably during the Westward Journey nickel series in the early 2000s, when the United States Mint commemorated the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark expedition. These temporary changes highlighted Jefferson's role in American expansion before returning to a refreshed portrait of Jefferson in 2006, sculpted by Jamie Franke and featured on the obverse of the modern nickel, which leads us to the 2021 Jefferson nickel, an issue that may seem ordinary at first glance, but is packed with details, minting quirks, and a numismatic legacy that collectors should not overlook. The 2021 Jefferson nickel continues with Franke's forward-facing Jefferson portrait, a significant departure from Schlag's original profile, which symbolizes a more personal and direct connection between Jefferson and the people who use this coin every day. The reverse features Monticello still refined and more crisply detailed compared to earlier versions, capturing the neoclassical elegance of Jefferson's Virginia estate and offering collectors a consistency that bridges generations. What makes the 2021 Jefferson nickel especially notable isn't just the design, but the context in which it was minted amid a time of change for the U.S. Mint and the global economy. The coin shortage that began in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic still had effects rippling into 2021, causing unusual patterns in coin circulation production and collector demand. This environment created both opportunities and challenges for collectors. Mintages were substantial, but distribution was uneven, sparking interest in searching bank rolls and change for pristine examples, error coins, and rare varieties. Now let's talk about the varieties and mint marks of the 2021 issue. Coins were minted in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, each offering something different to collectors. The Philadelphia mint coins have no mint mark and are often the most common yet still desirable in high-grade condition coins from Denver. Carry the D mint mark and were produced in large quantities with a reputation for sharp strikes and detail. The San Francisco coins, however, were produced specifically for collectors in proof sets, known for their mirror-like fields and frosted devices. These proof coins are the pinnacle of quality, showcasing the Jefferson design in a way unmatched by circulation strikes. We also have to consider the possibility of errors, which is where things get exciting for seasoned collectors. While the U.S. Mint maintains strict quality control, occasional mistakes occur, leading to coins with doubled dies, off-center strikes, die clashes, and other anomalies that can greatly increase a coin's value and appeal. And yes, even in 2021, several of these errors have been discovered and documented across various mint facilities, leading to a surge in interest for roll searching and error hunting. But let's go even deeper. Let's talk about how the nickel itself represents a convergence of history, artistry, and economics. The 5-cent piece, although simple in denomination, has carried the face of a founding father, the architecture of American ideals, and the silent testimony of changing times in alloy and design, from wartime silver nickels to modern clad compositions. The Jefferson nickel speaks to America's resilience and its commitment to legacy, even in everyday objects. Analyzing the die creation process, we see how hubs and dies are used to stamp millions of coins each year, yet each die is unique and can suffer wear, tear, and microscopic differences that define varieties. These varieties in the 2021 Jefferson nickel include examples of repunched mint marks, subtle doubling in inscriptions, and more, making each coin a tiny historical artifact for those with the patience and knowledge to recognize it. Understanding the grading of Jefferson nickels also plays a critical role for serious collectors. From circulated, condition to mint state and beyond coins are evaluated on a scale from 1 to 70, with MS 65 and above considered gem quality. The 2021 issue being recent offers many high-grade examples, but not all are created equal, with strike sharpness, luster, surface marks, and eye appeal all factored into the grade, and thus the value and rarity of the coin. The market for 2021. Nickels is dynamic, influenced by supply, demand, and the collector community's social media role. Hunts and YouTube videos like this one contribute to rising interest and help bring together hobbyists who share finds, tips, and knowledge. Every 2021 nickel you examine could be a learning moment and perhaps a hidden treasure as we explore coin by coin, roll by roll, detail by detail. We see the Jefferson nickel not as a mere monetary tool, but as a reflection of American culture, artistry, and identity. And when you hold a 2021 nickel in your hand, you hold a piece of that living history, minted in a time of uncertainty, yet rooted in the enduring stability of tradition. And now, as we begin our deep dive into each aspect of the 2021 Jefferson nickel, from the minting process to varieties to market trends and historical echoes, I invite you to stay with me on this numismatic journey where every detail matters and every coin tells a story that continues to unfold one nickel at a time. The numismatic community places strong focus on errors and varieties. In 2021, nickels and several error types have already surfaced, including off-center strikes where the coin blank was not properly aligned with the dies, leading to partial designs. Visible planchet errors, such as improper alloy mix or lamination cracks, have also been found, along with machine doubling, which may appear similar to true doubled dies, but lacks the raised distinct separation. True doubled dies occur when the hub imprints the die more than once in misaligned fashion, and these are rare and valuable among the 2021 nickels. A few doubled die obverses have been reported with doubling in the inscriptions, like Liberty or In God We Trust, though not officially confirmed by the major grading services. Yet this has fueled roll hunting efforts across the U.S. and created buzz in online forums and numismatic publications. Let us not overlook the importance of coin roll hunting in the modern age, a method accessible to beginner and advanced collectors alike. With the 2021 nickels still in active circulation, banks and cash-based businesses are fertile ground for finding unsearched rolls. Collectors often acquire boxes of nickels directly from banks and sort through them to identify high-grade examples, errors, low mintage issues, or simply build full date and mint mark sets. This grassroots-level collecting continues to fuel the popularity of Jefferson nickels, especially among younger numismatists who document their finds on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok and bring fresh enthusiasm to the hobby. Educators also use the Jefferson nickel, particularly the 2021 issue, as a teaching tool about economics, American history, art, and metallurgy. Jefferson's legacy provides a gateway to discuss the Enlightenment principles that shaped the nation, while Monticello invites conversations about architecture, politics, and even the contradictions of a man who wrote about liberty, yet owned enslaved people. The nickel therefore becomes not only a collectible object, but a catalyst for deeper discussion and reflection on the country's past, present, and future. Market trends for 2021, nickels remain fluid, and as with most modern coinage, the majority are worth face value in circulated condition. However, coins that grade MS 67 or higher with full steps on Monticello command strong premiums. The full steps designation refers to uninterrupted detail on the steps of Monticello, indicating a sharp strike. Coins with 6 full visible steps are extremely desirable, and even small blemishes or weak strikes can disqualify a nickel from this elite status. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC track these population reports and auction prices and provide up-to-date guides for collectors seeking top-tier pieces. Collectors also watch for packaging and set inclusions. The 2021 Jefferson nickel appears in annual mint sets, proof sets, and silver proof sets, and each version offers slight differences in finish and presentation. For example, the silver proof set includes a nickel that is standard in composition, but included with silver counterparts, creating an interesting contrast and collecting opportunity. The packaging and certificates of authenticity included with these sets can also add collector value, especially when preserved in mint condition. Finally, we explore the historical echo of coins like the 2021 Jefferson nickel as currency continues to evolve with the rise of digital payments and cashless transactions. Coins like this one may become less common in daily life, yet they endure as cultural artifacts, symbols of shared national experience, and quiet carriers of tradition. Whether you are a beginner, intrigued by a shiny nickel in your change, or a seasoned numismatist analyzing die Polish lines under magnification, the 2021 Jefferson nickel has something to offer. It is a coin rooted in legacy, born in an era of uncertainty and minted with precision that tells a story far greater than its denomination suggests. Placing the Buffalo nickel, which had been in circulation since 1913, the new nickel was introduced during the administration of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and its main purpose was to honor Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States and the principal author of the Declaration of Independence. The design of the Jefferson nickel was created by artist Felix Schlag, who submitted the winning entry in a competition hosted by the U.S. Mint. His original design was revised before final approval, and in the end, the obverse featured a left-facing profile of Thomas Jefferson, while the reverse depicted Jefferson's famous home, Monticello, located in Virginia. The coin was first struck in 1938 at three major mints: the Philadelphia Mint, which used no mint mark, the Denver Mint with the D Mint mark, and the San Francisco Mint using the S mark. And this pattern continued through the years, including the 1953 edition which we focus on today. Now, stepping into the year 1953, we must place ourselves in the context of post-World War II America. This was a time of immense social change, economic growth, and Cold War tension. The country had just elected Dwight D. Eisenhower as president, and there was an air of cautious optimism across the nation. In the world of coinage, the U.S. Mint was adjusting to peacetime needs and had resumed full production after the restrictions and adjustments during the war years. The 1953 Jefferson nickel was produced at three different locations, again, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. However, this would be the final year of regular Jefferson nickel production at the San Francisco Mint until many years later, which gives the 1953 Jefferson nickel a special place in numismatic history. The San Francisco Mint actually stopped striking regular issue coins after 1955, focusing instead on proof and special mint sets, and not returning to general coinage production until decades later. In total, the U.S. Mint produced more than 143 million Jefferson nickels in 1953. The Philadelphia Mint led the way with over 76 million coins, the Denver Mint struck over 59 million, and the San Francisco Mint contributed approximately 19 million, and because of this, the 1953 Jefferson nickel is considered the key issue of the year, not for its mintage, which was still in the millions, but for the historical significance of being among the last regular strike coins from that mint during this era. From a design standpoint, the 1953 Jefferson nickel remains consistent with previous years. It features Thomas Jefferson on the obverse with inscriptions along the rim, including "In God We Trust Liberty" and the date. 1953 on the reverse, the image of Monticello is centered with inscriptions reading "E pluribus unum," Monticello 5 cents, and United States of America. However, collectors often look at finer details such as strike sharpness, die polish, die deterioration, and plancher quality, and many Jefferson nickels of the early 1950s can be found with weak strikes, particularly from the Denver and San Francisco mints, due to worn dies and aging equipment. Collectors today place value not just on the mint mark, but on the condition and rarity of the coin. Full steps designation is especially important. This refers to the number of clearly visible steps on the Monticello building on the reverse side of the coins that exhibit 5 or 6 full steps without interruption are graded higher and are significantly more valuable in the market. The 1953 Jefferson nickel from Philadelphia is notoriously hard to find with full steps, making those specimens particularly prized by advanced collectors. It is also important to note the changes happening at the U.S. Mint. During the early 1950s, the Mint was working to modernize its equipment and coinage process, but still relied on traditional mechanical presses and hand-prepared dies. This meant quality control was not as consistent as modern standards, and coins from this period often exhibit variations from die-wear doubled dies, re-punched mint marks, and even some planchet issues and errors. Errors and varieties of the 1953 Jefferson nickel are an important part of its numismatic interest. Collectors have discovered re-punched mint marks, especially on the 1953S and 1953D issues, where the mint mark was punched more than once by hand, resulting in overlapping impressions. There are also examples of die cracks chips off center strikes, and lamination errors, which add to the appeal for error coin collectors and specialists. Looking deeper into the economic and cultural aspects of 1953, the nickel remained a fundamental part of daily commerce. It was used in vending machines, jukeboxes, and transportation systems. A nickel could still buy a loaf of bread or a bus fare. In many places, the average American may not have thought twice about the 5-cent coin, but it circulated heavily and carried the story of Thomas Jefferson and American ideals into the hands of millions. Jefferson as a figure is a fitting choice for a coin. He was a visionary founding father and advocate for liberty and education, and the founder of the University of Virginia. His influence on American political philosophy remains profound, and his inclusion on a widely circulated coin helps keep his legacy alive to this day. As we continue this video, we will examine examples of high-grade 1953 Jefferson nickels, look at certified population reports from grading agencies like PCGS and NGC, and analyze price trends in auctions and online markets. We will also explore stories from collectors who discovered these coins in circulation or inherited them from relatives, and we will discuss the role these nickels play in complete Jefferson nickel sets and registry collections. We will take a close look at grading standards using visual examples to show the difference between a circulated coin, a mint state coin, and a full steps example, and we will compare these coins across the 3 mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, explaining the minor differences in DI characteristics, metal composition, and strike quality. As we continue our exploration of the 1953 Jefferson nickel, it is important to look at the broader context of American coinage during the 1950s and how the values of this time were reflected in the coinage system. The early 1950s was a time of national rebuilding, industrial expansion, and growing prosperity, following the difficult years of World War II and the Great Depression. The United States Mint played a vital role in reflecting stability and continuity through its coin designs, and the Jefferson nickel was a symbol of that era. The coin itself was struck in a composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel, a durable alloy that had proven effective since the late 1800s. This composition remained consistent. Despite changing demands for metal during wartime, the nickel itself was part of daily commerce. But it also represented technological achievement in minting processes that were becoming increasingly complex in the post-war years. The 1953 Jefferson nickel featured no significant design changes from the 1938 original, but subtle shifts in die-wear strike sharpness and planchet quality make this year particularly important to specialists. There were significant inconsistencies in the strike quality of the Denver and San Francisco coins, and this adds layers of complexity to grading and valuation. The San Francisco Mint, which had a rich history dating back to the California Gold Rush, was nearing the end of its regular coinage run in 1953. This makes the 1953 S issue not only a low mintage coin, but one of the last circulated coins produced by that mint before it transitioned to proof and collector sets only for the next several decades. Now let us go deeper into the minting process itself. In 1953, coins were still struck using screw presses and manually prepared dies. This meant that human error was more frequent and differences between coin batches were more visible. Mint marks were hand-punched onto dies, and this led to a wide variety of mint mark placements on 1953D and 1953S coins. The Jefferson nickel as a series is one of the most collected coin types in the United States. Many collectors build full-date and mint mark sets with a focus on condition and varieties, and the 1953 coins provide a particularly interesting challenge for these collectors because of the limited availability of full-step specimens and the uneven quality of minting across locations. Let us look closely now at the full steps designation, which is awarded when the steps on the Monticello reverse are fully struck and separated. Collectors highly value this designation as it reflects the sharpest strikes and best preserved dies. Coins with 5 or 6 full steps are rare, especially from 1953, and this makes them highly sought after by advanced numismatists. In population reports from major grading companies like PCGS and NGC, we find that 1953 Jefferson nickels in mint state with full steps are extremely limited in number and often command high premiums at auction. For example, a 1953 D nickel with full steps in MS-66 condition can sell for several $100s, and in some rare cases over $1,000 when the strike is exceptionally clean. As we shift into the collector culture surrounding the Jefferson nickel, we see a vibrant community of hobbyists, dealers, researchers, and auction houses who actively study, trade, and catalog these coins. Collectors often search for raw examples in old rolls, coin jars, and estate sales, hoping to find unrecognized treasures among common pieces. Specialist collectors also pursue error coins, which were more common in the pre-modern minting era. Examples include off-center strikes, where the design is visibly shifted to one side, clipped planchets, where part of the coin is missing from the edge, die cracks that appear as raised lines across the surface, and lamination errors, where the surface layer of the metal separates during striking. All of these can be found among 1953. Jefferson nickels, and each error tells a story of how the minting process sometimes broke down under pressure. Turning now to the proof versions, although no proof nickels were struck in 1953 due to the temporary suspension of proof sets from 1943 to 1949, and their reintroduction in 1950, proof Jefferson nickels were only made in Philadelphia starting in 1950 and continuing thereafter. Thus, 1953 does not have a proof version, but collectors often compare it to proof-like examples which occasionally appear among high-grade business strikes with especially reflective fields and sharp detail. Looking at the design of the Jefferson nickel in a broader cultural sense, we see the portrait of Jefferson by Felix Schlag as a product of 1930s neoclassical design. His rendering of Jefferson was based on sculptural representations and historical paintings, while Monticello on the reverse was inspired by classical architecture and designed to symbolize Enlightenment reason and individual liberty concepts that Jefferson championed. In fact, Monticello was more than just a home. It was a reflection of Jefferson's personality, his intellectual curiosity, and his architectural talent. Its inclusion on the coin was not just a backdrop, but a representation of the American ideal, the pursuit of knowledge balanced with a life of service and humility. Finally, let us turn our attention to investing and collecting trends. The Jefferson nickel series is often undervalued compared to silver coinage, but this provides a unique opportunity for collectors to obtain historically significant coins at accessible prices, especially for mid-century issues like the 1953 nickels building, a complete set with full steps. Examples from each mint remains a challenge that attracts both new and experienced collectors. In conclusion, the 1953 Jefferson nickel is far more than a simple 5-cent coin. It is a bridge between the wartime economy and the prosperous years that followed it, is a closing chapter for the San Francisco Mint's role in circulating coinage. It is a product of early 20th century design paired with mid-century minting technology, and it is a challenge to collectors who seek quality, rarity, and history in every piece they examine. This concludes the extended historical narrative, but we will now proceed with visual comparisons, coin grading walkthroughs, auction price data, and collector interviews in the remainder of this video. That is worth preserving and understanding in its entirety. To truly understand the 1972 Jefferson nickel, we must start with the origins of the Jefferson nickel itself. The Jefferson nickel was first introduced in the year 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel, which had been in circulation since 1913. The decision to replace the Buffalo nickel came after the U.S. Mint determined it was time to redesign the 5-cent coin, as the design of a coin could be legally changed after 25 years without the need for congressional approval. So in 1938, the United States Mint held a public competition, inviting American artists to submit their designs for the new nickel. The winning design came from artist and sculptor Felix Schlag, whose depiction of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States, was chosen for the obverse, while his original reverse design was altered to better showcase Jefferson's Monticello estate. Felix Schlag's final design was placed into circulation in late 1938 and would remain largely unchanged for decades. The obverse features a left-facing portrait of Jefferson, while the reverse displays the neoclassical architecture of Monticello Jefferson's Virginia home. The design captured the spirit of American democracy and innovation, and with the Jefferson nickel's continued use through various wars, economic downturns, and cultural shifts, it became a staple of American coinage. Now we turn our attention specifically to the 1972 Jefferson nickel to understand its context. We must examine the state of the United States and the Mint during the early 1970s. The year 1972 was marked by a number of political and economic developments. The United States was still entangled in the Vietnam War, which had been ongoing for nearly 2 decades. The country was preparing for a presidential election, as Richard Nixon was. Approaching his campaign for a second term, the American economy was facing inflationary pressure, and public trust in government institutions was gradually declining. Despite these challenges, the Mint continued its operations, producing billions of coins each year to support the growing needs of commerce. The 1972 Jefferson nickel was minted at 3 different locations: the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint. Each of these locations played a role in creating coins for circulation and collector sets. The Philadelphia Mint produced coins without a mint mark, while the Denver Mint used a D mint mark, and the San Francisco Mint used an S mint mark. But in 1972, most nickels from San Francisco were made as proof coins intended for collectors rather than for everyday circulation. From a numismatic perspective, the 1972 Jefferson nickel is not particularly rare in circulated condition, as hundreds of millions were struck that year. However, collectors value certain characteristics that make some 1972 nickels far more desirable. These include full steps designations, where the steps on Monticello on the reverse of the coin are fully struck and visible. This feature can greatly increase the value of a coin, as it demonstrates a high level of detail, and a clean strike from the dies used in production achieving full steps can be difficult and is often seen as a sign of a higher grade coin. In terms of mintage, the Philadelphia Mint struck over 217 million Jefferson nickels in 1972. The Denver Mint produced more than 351 million, while the San Francisco Mint created approximately 3.2 million proof coins. This makes the 1972 D Jefferson nickel the most common among the 3 mints. However, quality control varied, and finding well-struck examples from any of the mints remains a challenge for dedicated collectors. When examining a 1972 Jefferson nickel, collectors also look for errors and varieties. These can include die clashes, die cracks, off-center strikes, double die obverses or reverses, and repunched mint marks. One well-known variety from the 1970s includes doubled dies, where the design elements appear to be duplicated, slightly offset due to a misalignment during the die creation process. While there are no widely recognized doubled die varieties specifically attributed to the 1972 Jefferson nickel, examples of minor doubling may still exist and can command a premium depending on clarity and rarity. The condition of a coin also significantly affects its value. A 1972 Jefferson nickel, in average circulated condition, is worth its face value of 5 cents, but uncirculated examples, especially those with full steps, can be worth several dollars or more. High-grade proof coins from San Francisco with mirror-like surfaces, deep cameo contrast, and clean fields can fetch premium prices in the collector market. To understand why collectors are drawn to the Jefferson nickel, we must also look at Thomas Jefferson himself. He was one of the most influential founding fathers of the United States, the principal author of the Declaration of Independence, and the third president of the country. His advocacy for liberty, republicanism, and education shaped American political philosophy for generations to come. His home, Monticello, is not only a marvel of neoclassical architecture, but also a symbol of his Enlightenment ideals. Jefferson's image on the nickel represents more than a historical figure. It embodies the aspirations of a young nation seeking independence, innovation, and integrity. The Jefferson nickel's endurance through history is also noteworthy. It survived the transition from silver to clad coinage that occurred in other denominations. It witnessed the removal of silver from dimes and quarters in 1965 and stood as one of the few denominations to maintain a consistent metallic composition. Since World War II, the alloy of the Jefferson nickel is composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel, a combination chosen for durability and resistance to corrosion. This same composition was used during the war years except from 1942 to 1945, when the wartime nickels were struck with a composition of copper, silver, and manganese to conserve nickel for military use. As we explore the production and legacy of the 1972 Jefferson nickel, it becomes clear that even common coins can tell us volumes about our history, our values, and our identity as a nation. The process of coin design, minting, and distribution involves a complex network of artists, engravers, historians, engineers, economists, and public officials, each contributing their expertise to ensure that the coins in our pockets represent the best of American craftsmanship and heritage. The appeal of collecting Jefferson nickels lies in the thrill of the hunt, the joy of finding a high-grade specimen, the discovery of a rare variety or error, and the satisfaction of building a complete set spanning decades of American history. The 1972 Jefferson nickel is just one chapter in this story, but it is a meaningful one. Its place in the 1970s, a period of transformation, tension, and progress, mirrors the evolving role of coinage in a modernizing society. In conclusion, the 1972 Jefferson nickel may seem like an ordinary coin to some, but to numismatists, historians, and collectors, it is a key piece in the larger puzzle of American culture and heritage. It represents the legacy of Thomas Jefferson, the evolution of coin design, and the enduring role of money in everyday life. Whether you are a seasoned collector or a curious beginner, I hope this deep dive into the 1972 Jefferson nickel has inspired you to look more closely at the coins you encounter and to appreciate the remarkable stories they carry. Stay tuned as we continue to uncover more stories and secrets from the world of coin collecting right here on this channel. And remember, every coin has a history and every history has a voice waiting to be heard.